Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has resigned and left the country after weeks of student-led protests spiraled into deadly nationwide unrest. Sheikh Hasina has continuously been in power for the past 15 years. Credited with overseeing Bangladesh's economic progress in the recent years, she began her political career as a pro-democracy icon. Born in East Bengal in 1947, Sheikh Hasina is the eldest child of Banga Bandhu, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Regarded as the father of Bangladesh, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman led the country's independence movement against Pakistan in 1971. He went on to become Bangladesh's first leader. Sheikh Hasina's political career began during her student days at Eden Women's College in the 1960s, where she was elected vice president of the college student union in 1966 as a candidate for the Chhatra League. During Bangladesh's War of Independence against Pakistan in 1971, she was held captive along with her mother, her sister Rehana, and youngest brother Sheikh Russell. Post the war, she graduated from Dhaka University in 1973. However, things took a turn for the worse when in 1975 her father was assassinated and her entire family was massacred. At that time, Hasina was in Europe with her husband Wazid Mia and sister Rehana. They took refuge in the house of the Bangladeshi ambassador to West Germany before taking up an offer of political asylum from Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Hasina's 6-year exile in India was a formative period in her life. She lived in Delhi's Pandara Road under an assumed identity for 6 years, from 1975 to 1981. During this time, she forged strong bonds with Indian leaders, including Congress leader Pranab Mukherjee and the Gandhi family. Her stay in India not only ensured her safety, but also allowed her to build connections that would later prove instrumental in her political career. It was after 6 years, on the 17th of May 1981, that Hasina returned to Bangladesh, where she was elected in absentia as the General Secretary of the Awami League. She has led the party since that pivotal moment. Sheikh Hasina joined hands with other political parties to hold pro-democracy street protests, ruling the military rule of General Hussain Mohammad Irshad. Propelled by the popular uprising, she quickly became a national icon and was elected to power in 1996. She earned credit for signing a water-sharing deal with India and a peace deal with tribal insurgents in the southeast of the country. But at the same time, her government was criticized for numerous allegedly corrupt business deals and for being too subservient to India. She later lost to her former ally turned nemesis Begum Khalida Zia of the Bangladeshi Nationalist Party in 2001. As heirs to political dynasties, both women dominated Bangladesh politics for more than 3 decades and used to be known as the battling Begums. Hasina endured numerous arrests while in opposition, as well as several assassination attempts, including one in 2004 that damaged her hearing. She eventually came back to power in 2009 in polls held under a caretaker government. However, after 15 years in power, she has had to buckle under the pressure exerted by protesters, and she's had to flee to India. That is a little bit of the story of Sheikh Hasina, but we take this conversation forward with Professor Madhav Nalapa, the editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, with us on the broadcast. I also have with me Advocate Hassan Tariq Chaudhry. He is a lawyer from Bangladesh who stays in Dhaka, and his office was in fact set on fire. I want to begin this conversation with Advocate Chaudhry, if I may. Advocate Chaudhry, we'd just like to understand from you, Sheikh Hasina, Khalida Zia, all of the, both the ladies, important political figures in Bangladesh. Do you feel that the momentum against Sheikh Hasina has been on for a few years and not just a few weeks or months as the world is understanding it to be?
Thank you and good evening. The reality is this: the agitation and anger from the people has started from long ago. because of the non-participatory election and misrule and unlimited corruption led by the Sheikh Hasina government. And unfortunately, this sort of things happening time and again, even during the period of Khaleda Zia, the question of democracy was almost same. And they rig election and they did an one party election at that time. And Sheikh Hasina follows the same line. Tragedy is that nobody learned anything from the previous history.
Okay, I want to bring in Professor Madhav Nalapat into the conversation as well. Professor Nalapat, given the circumstances under which, or rather the reports that are coming in that Sheikh Hasina was given 45 minutes to resign, do you feel that there is a lot about the history of Bangladesh in the past few years, especially a growing influence of the United States of America that a lot of people are not perhaps talking about or are perhaps not even aware of? The fact that Sheikh Hasina and certain decisions of her government and what was happening in Bangladesh was on the radar of the Americans for quite some time.
Well, there's no doubt, Devika, the State Department of the United States is against Sheikh Hasina and was for Khaleda Zia. Now, unfortunately, the State Department is on a totally different track from the Pentagon, for example, and it is living in the past. Living in the past when Pakistan was an ally, living in the past when it was Cold War 1.0 between Russia, that is the Soviet Union then, and the US. And they are forgetting that the new Cold War 2.0, is with China. So that they definitely are hostile. But the biggest beneficiary from this is China. Let's be honest about it. And it's very, you have a lot of messaging and memes and trolls and bots saying it's the United States. My own view is that the Chinese have a certain mastery over social media, even in the platforms of the United States. And they can basically twist messaging to suit their convenience. And this thing that the United States is primarily responsible is very, very convenient for the Chinese to camouflage behind. So I simply want to point out the United States actually is a loser. State Department has got a history of backing losers, and the latest has been Zelensky in Ukraine, and where Zelensky has basically been just trying to drag NATO into his war, which would be catastrophic. The same way as Netanyahu is trying to drag the United States into his war with Iran, which again would be catastrophic. Having said that, I'd like to point out that Sheikh Hasina became deeply unpopular. She had 3 terms in office. The young people of Bangladesh, they're not looking at handouts. They want a job. Many of them have got education. Many of them have at least school education, and a lot of them have got college education. They want a job. And unfortunately, when we're talking about the growth figures of Bangladesh, we're talking about growth led by technology, led by the use of machinery, led by the use of technology. And as a consequence, a lot of jobs have not been created, they have been displaced. So Sheikh Hasina, the 3rd term, the young people said, all right, we'll give her a chance. But by the end of the 3rd term, it was very clear that jobs were not going to come during her time. That was their belief, and they got fed up, and they went on the streets when she won another term, a 4th term. So having said that, I'd like to point out very clearly that she was deeply unpopular. And in my view, both Khaleda Zia and Sheikh Hasina are no longer, frankly, good for the Bangladeshi people. And I certainly hope that you'll have a government in place that doesn't have either of these 2 parties, because they have a record, as has been said by our Bangladeshi expert, of corruption. So Bangladesh will be rescued only if this happens. The problem is there's an extremist fringe which seems to have captured the leadership of the student movement in the final weeks and led it to a very violent direction. And they want Khaleda Zia. Khaleda Zia is a puppet. Khaleda Zia, frankly, was supporting Pakistan. I mean, it is basically supporting the very country that committed genocide in Bangladesh. So in my view, the only way out would be for the army to resist the temptations and the calls of basically the extremists and listen to the students themselves who want actually Muhammad Yunus. And if not Muhammad Yunus, some other non-controversial expert and a good team of experts to run the country for about a year and then have clean elections. I think the Bangladeshi people deserve clean elections. They deserve a good government, and neither of these two ex-prime ministers is at all likely to provide it for them. Devika.
Professor Nalapad, I'd also like to understand from you, you touched upon how the Chinese have become masters of really creating narratives, especially on social media. I want to understand from you, though, who really benefits from instability in Bangladesh?
Look, Joyita, the narratives have mostly been created in the United States, in other democracies, in the UK, in Europe, and the idea is to widen the fault lines in society so that the extreme fringe, the extreme left fringe, and the extreme right fringe, they gain, and the moderate middle shrinks. And that's what's happening in the UK and the US and all that. And you're seeing this use of social media to promote that kind of a situation where, you know, it's hate and hate against each other. And more and more people get attracted to it. You have messaging that attracts people, and more people get attracted to fringe views. And you're seeing in Britain, riots take place. You're seeing other countries, riots take place. You're seeing the United States, riots take place. And that is what they've been doing. Now, they are very active in this kind of fake messaging in every country in South Asia. The only country that has not fallen victim to it is India under Prime Minister Modi. So far, India has not fallen victim to it. The people have not fallen victim to it. They still have confidence in Prime Minister Modi. They still have confidence that during his third term will be much better than the second term, which indeed was much better than the first term. So the only country in South Asia that has escaped the toxic effects, the hyper-toxic effects. Some of the toxic effects are there, definitely, and you see it in some of the discourse, social and political. But a lot of the toxicity has been controlled under this particular government, and that's something which makes India unique. Bangladesh, unfortunately, is not in the same category as India, where avoiding this kind of toxicity, very, very subtle, camouflage toxicity. As for now, for example, you're seeing sending weapons to Ukraine by the dozens and dozens and dozens of flights, military flights of Russian aircraft. Where do you think those arms are coming from? Where do you think North Korea is sending arms? Where do you think Iran is sending arms? To Hamas. Those arms are being sourced with resources from China. So yes, I'm afraid the Chinese are masters of the game. The only country that they've failed to really penetrate sufficiently for their liking is India. And that's why they'll work very hard to destabilize India the way they destabilized Bangladesh over the last several years and created so many hate narratives. Devika.
Yes, Professor Nalapad, I'd also like to understand from you. In the past 15 years, as you've also pointed out, that there was perhaps towards the end of her tenure, her previous tenure, there was growing resentment against Sheikh Hasina. There was a factor of perhaps anti-incumbency, growing unpopularity due to her inability to create the sort of jobs that the youth are looking for. But when you see the protests today, and when you look at the protesters then removing or vandalizing the statue of Mujibur Rahman, the founder of the nation, what does that indicate about the nature of the protest itself?
It means that the fringe has taken control of the leadership. And Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the defacing of the statue, is basically by the fringe, not the ordinary Bangladeshi people. And the fact is that 3 terms was judged to be enough to deliver. At the end of 3 terms, nobody expects more promises. They expect results. 2 terms, yes. A 3rd term, definitely. But by the end of the third term, they expect results. And if they don't find results at the end of the third term, they go on the streets. And that's what's happened in Bangladesh. She had 3 terms, and frankly, none of these terms were successful in creating jobs. And as correctly been said, they were marked by very high levels of corruption. And as a consequence, the people basically turned against her. But unfortunately, that particular public anger has now been, in a sense, channeled by the fringe to try to come to power in Bangladesh through people like Khaleda Zia.
Okay.
Devika.
All right. I want to bring in Advocate Chaudhary back into the conversation. Advocate Chaudhary, what do you
Yes.
make, or what are the people in Bangladesh largely, what is the conversation regarding a movement that now seems to be against the Awami League itself, or the founding of the nation itself? Like I said, it's one thing that there is resentment against Sheikh Hasina and she's become an unpopular leader. But why do you think that the protesters have taken to the streets to also vandalize statues of Mujibur Rahman? What message are they trying to send out? And is that a message that is resonating with the people of Bangladesh? Or would you say that it's just a handful of people who have taken over the protest and are using the student protest to convert it into a political battle as well?
Yes, the agitating students, and there is a coordination team, and they openly said to the news media that they are not involved in vandalism. But if you see the today's newspaper and online media in Bangladesh, you will find every moment the Hindu community are being attacked by the hooligans, and their the mandir and their property and houses are being attacked. So who is attacking? And we have seen the newspaper that European Union urged to the people of Bangladesh to save the religious minority. And every day in the television and news media, we see the police, even police is appealing to the people not to attack on police and police stations. So this is the situation. And thing is that there is no government now, and the stakeholders, now you see the BNP is in the front line along with the religious extremist Jamaat-e-Islam and other far-right wings. They are pressing the president to form an interim government immediately. But according to the constitution, he should do this. But what happened? People do not understand why it is delaying. And some scholars and civil society are pressing for not it is not possible within the 24 hours. It could take 3 months, 6 months like this. So delaying to form an interim government actually falls the country in the failed state. No state is there. But the reality is that people still have the confidence on the army. That army, if army takes over and if they take a patriotic position, the peace can be restored. But we do not see such kind of symptoms in the street. And the one more question you asked about why some people are vandalizing the statue of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. The thing is that because of the campaign from the news media, as Professor Madhav said, there is a big role of social media in this movement, in student movement of Bangladesh recently. And that is why during the movement several times, the government authorities stopped Facebook and they stopped YouTube and WhatsApp and all other internet communication. And we see repeatedly some suggested and sponsored videos are coming which were fake. But this sort of sponsored and suggested videos provoke some people to create more miscreants, to create more havoc, and to spread rumors among the society. And that is why the mob has been increased geometrically.
Advocate
But reality is that, as I said earlier, that the Hasina became hugely, unlimitedly unpopular. And there was huge anger from the people because there was no job, as Professor Madhav said. As
Yes.
young generation, they were being deprived of to take part in the election.
Yes. Advocate Chaudhary, I just want to understand from you. Yes, you're saying Sheikh Hasina became widely unpopular, but is the release of Khalda Zia then again resonating with the people of Bangladesh, or is there somewhere a feeling that this entire students' protest may have been taken over for political gains?
This is a danger, and this danger has been uttered by the student leaders. And the student leaders said, we don't want to be hijacked by the corrupt politicians. They want this is a new type of political development in Bangladesh, as we have seen in the history. They denied the traditional politics. The students denied the traditional political process. They said, this is a unique process, unique style of political movement. And they say that we want a real Bangladesh. We want to take back a peaceful and democratic Bangladesh, and which will be pro-people and free from all type of discrimination. And you see the name of the Student Alliance is Anti-Discrimination Student Alliance. So what is the meaning of discrimination? Discrimination within the religion, discrimination among the upper class and the downtrodden class, discrimination against the Dalit and other people. There is a discrimination. There are so many discrimination. Discrimination in terms of gender, discrimination in terms of profession, etc. So they said that we don't want that our movement can hijack by the politicians. That is why they are now in a meeting with the president.
But there is a chatter, you're saying, amongst the student community. There is an admission amongst the student community that the protest has been hijacked. On that note, Professor Nalapat, I'll leave the last word with you. So I want to understand from you, with Sheikh Hasina now fleeing from Bangladesh, and we don't know where she's expecting, as our sources tell us that she's heading to London, which is a popular destination for several leaders, has been in the past as well. South Asian leaders particularly, who fled their countries. Nawaz Sharif was also in London. However, her family at this point in time ruling out her ever returning to Bangladesh. What do you make of some of those statements that have come out? Do you feel that this marks the end for Sheikh Hasina's political career?
In my view, I'd like to say yes. I don't think that the people of Bangladesh will want her back. They don't want Khalida Zia also. And if Khalida Zia is gerrymandered into power, by the way, the Chinese are very keen on Khalida Zia, because during her time, you remember, in our own Northeast, the troubles multiplied, thanks to help from Bangladesh under Khalida Zia. So my own view is, within a few months, the streets will again be boiling of a few months of the election, which if Khalida Zia is in government, the election is going to be gerrymandered, I can tell you, and surprising results will come. As, for example, they may have come in this election. But the reality is, frankly, the Bangladeshi people don't want either of these ladies. And if Khalida Zia or some traditional politician, corrupt politician, comes to power and takes office, and then he or she will run the government exactly the same way as these two ladies have in the past. And frankly, the people are fed up of that, and the streets will be boiling once again, I can tell you. That's my prediction, Devika. That's why we need a non-partisan government.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.